All right, we're back. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Emerging Pod, where we guide emerging people through emerging careers. Today on the pod, we're excited to have Fabian Werkmeister, a talented data scientist who took a fascinating 180-degree turn from economics to data science and hasn't looked back since. After studying economics and business, Fabian worked in digital marketing for a couple of years before joining a data science bootcamp in 2020, right at the beginning of COVID. Since then, he joined FUNKE, working in a variety of projects, both as a data engineer and data scientist. Now, after experiencing firsthand the exciting world of data, he is passionate about sharing his knowledge and inspiring others to explore the world of data science. Fabian, great to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
So let's go to the beginning. You chose to study business and economics. What prompted that decision?
Mainly because I had no clue what to do after high school, and my father was in accounting, my brother was in accounting, so it was probably the most logic thing to do to also start with economics and accounting. This brought me into studying economics in my bachelor and in my master's degree. But after my master's degree, I noticed that this wasn't quite my cup of tea, to be honest. I like the numbers part of it, but the rest of it not that much.
How is the actual degree structured? What did you do? I studied business as well, and for me it was a lot of theory, a bit of fluff. There was some other kind of numerical subjects which I enjoyed, and there was also some case study based subjects, which again was interesting because we were working on relevant problems, or at least I had like an idea of how different things are applied in a simulated environment, but still real context. How was yours structured?
Yeah, pretty much the same in my bachelor's. Lots of topics, broad variety. Like you said, many theories, many things from the past, I would say. Like, I mean, the basics of statistics and basics of accounting, but also pretty old marketing theories, pretty old broad economic theories. This changed a bit in the master's degree, where we also had some practical group work, like you mentioned, where we did some simulations. These were small groups, and yeah, we could work on different tasks, pretty focused, which I liked, and pretty practical, which I also liked. So a bit away from all the theoretical stuff and into a more use case approach. Yeah.
That makes sense. And then when you finished, you started working in performance marketing.
Yeah.
How did that came about? Did you know exactly what you wanted to do, or were you just like spray and pray?
I had no idea. It was basically the same like after high school. I had no idea what to do. The only thing I noticed in my bachelor and master that I liked kind of to work with numbers. This brought me to performance marketing because the profession is kind of advertised like you work with numbers, you optimize marketing or digital marketing campaigns according to numbers. That's what got me. But it only lasted for like half a year because I noticed that I wouldn't call it false advertising, but I imagined something else from it, and I didn't quite get it from this profession because, in my opinion, there wasn't much room for creativity. Like so I kind of monitored and managed Google ad campaigns, and this wasn't that creative in my opinion because my clients only said, "Yeah, put more money into this campaign, and then the numbers go up, like impressions." And so this wasn't really creative for me, and that's why I pretty fast exited this and went into market research, which I imagined would be a lot more creative. It was to a certain degree, but also not that creativity I imagined, because it is also pretty much standardized. Like when you set up a questionnaire, you always got your clients with the same questions. And in theory, it's a lot of creativity, also working with numbers. But from my experience, it was a lot of working in PowerPoint and crunching numbers in Excel. And this also didn't really got me hooked on it. The only thing I liked about it in market research was coding things up in SPSS. For all the people who are not familiar with it, it's, I would say, the de facto standard in market research, where you got your questionnaire results and you crunch numbers and you derive insights from the questions from the respondents. It looks a bit like Excel, but it's a bit more sophisticated, I would say. There I had to code numbers together, and this is where I noticed that I really like to have my I really like to work in silence, put together numbers, put on my headphones for like 3 hours, and dive into the rabbit hole. This was my cup of tea. Yeah.
What kind of things were you researching when you were in market research? What topics or what markets?
Mostly we were researching around fast moving consumer goods, like how do you call it, like foods and your goods of your daily consumption. Do you call it
Yeah,
that
like
way?
toothpaste,
Yeah,
detergent,
exactly.
things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, companies that compete with Unilever
Yeah,
You could
and
call it
Procter
that.
and
Yeah,
Gamble. Yeah,
yeah. This area of I would say, yeah, and also a lot of clients in the automotive sector.
Mm.
So pretty much focus on specific product, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah.
And was it like market research of consumer opinions or usage or things like that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. Yeah, when I worked in consulting for a little bit, and that was the first time we also were doing some research for FMCG companies, and one of the things we had to do was do mystery shopping, which was quite an interesting experience. So it's not really data driven in any way, because you can't really go in person into too many shops, but it was a lot more qualitative type of data collection and analysis, which I thought was pretty interesting. I think I've learned a few things from that front in terms of how I operate the business as an entrepreneur. But yeah, that's interesting. So then, at what point? Well, actually, yeah, okay. At what point did you think, okay, this is not necessarily for me, I need to transition into something else? And how did you decide that data science was the thing you're going to get into?
That's an interesting question, because I can't really recall the point where I said I want to make a change. This happened gradually, I would say, because like in my prior position, I was kind of missing this creativity and finding a solution for a problem. And as I mentioned, I only had kind of fun when I was coding SPSS, and then I noticed, or I wondered, well, if this is coding, why don't I do it full time? And then, yeah, I went onto the internet, searched for coding and math and statistics. So basically, I threw all I knew into a basket, and data science came out somehow. And yeah, and one of my first Google results was the Google ads, ironically, for a data science bootcamp directly in my town where I'm living in Hamburg, Germany. And I said, oh, this looks interesting. And then I researched for like, I don't know, 2 days, hyper focused, only looking for these things. And then I made my decision that, yeah, I want to do a change for the good. Because basically every job change was a little step in this direction. And then I thought, maybe, why not fasten this whole process and dive right into data science with a bootcamp.
Out of curiosity, how did you? So you mentioned your brother and your dad are in accounting. So definitely I can see where the love of numbers come from. Did you have this conversation with them about like, getting into data science and explaining to them what data science was and how it relates in terms of the numbers part of it?
Well, that's the funny part. I also really didn't know much about data science, but the first, I don't know, like first 10 sentences I read about it already made me hooked about it. But I talked a lot with my parents and my brother, because these are people I trust in making these kind of decisions. And they said, hey, if you like it, if you want to do it, then go for it. Why waste your time in a safe job you don't really like? So and also I mean, if you Google for like all these data jobs, everywhere you find the marketing about it, that this is a future-proof job, and so this made my decision a lot easier, because I knew if I do this, this is a great investment in me and my future career. So there were no second thoughts, actually.
That makes sense. Do you think data science is a future-proof job?
I think so, yeah. I would say every job involving some kind of data or digital infrastructure is future-proof, because I mean our future is geared towards it. So yeah, I would say in terms of future-proofness, I would give it a 10 out of 10.
Okay, big words. But no, I tend to agree. I think a lot of jobs will change in terms of the tasks that you do and the tools that you have to do them. But ultimately, we are building more and more data infrastructure, and there's a growing demand for it. So at least for a while, I think it's all safe. We'll see. But yeah, so how's the bootcamp?
Tough.
How long did it take, and then what was the outcome of that?
My bootcamp was like 12 weeks, and
Okay.
we had 8 weeks like learning. You get so much input that you really can't process it in a good way. It's like it's thrown onto you, and do what you want with this information, because that's basically the concept behind it. Like that's why it got the name bootcamp. You're overwhelmed with information and things to do, and you are pretty much exhausted every day. But this is the concept behind it, so that you learn in like 8 weeks what is important and what is not. You don't learn how to use everything, and you don't have time to understand it. But you, as you question what the result is, after these 8 weeks of learning, and then you have a huge project where you have like 1 month to do it, and there you can apply all you have, all the knowledge you have acquired, I would say, not learned before, and you can apply it. And the result is that after 12 weeks, you kind of know what's important and what is not, and you know what you still don't know, if that's a good term to describe, because this is kind of, I think you're familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect, so that you, when you dive into a topic, you think you know pretty much, and then you go on, and you learn that you basically know nothing about it. And after you come out of bootcamp, you're at the start of the slope downwards, because you say, well, I'm pretty suited for a job, and then you are thrown out into the world, and then you if you continue learning, then you know, wow, I don't know anything. I know the mere basics of everything, and now it's my turn to go on.
Yeah, have you heard of the midwit meme? It's
No.
It's essentially describing an illustration of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where at first you're basically an idiot, so you see everything with like way better than it is. Then you learn a bit, and you actually know what you don't really know, and it makes you like you can be a bit like push back and become more pessimistic because you didn't know what you don't know, and then you get to the end where you become an expert and everything just kind of looks a lot simpler. So it was just a pretty popular meme lately. So
So this one was a bell curve. Where, yeah, I know. Yeah. I saw this with around SQL, where the newbie says just use SQL for everything. Then the angry dude says, "Wow, you need to do A, B, C, D, E," and then the expert in the end says, "You know what? Simply use SQL."
Yeah.
That's a good one.
What was the project that you worked on?
I worked on football data for the non-European soccer. Because this is data I pretty much know everything about. And this was a known terrain to work on. So I tried to predict the market values of players. You probably know Transfermarkt.
Nope.
No? Okay. This is a pretty popular database. So Transfermarkt is basically the transfer market. It's the German word for the market where players are
football transfers, rumors, market values. Yeah.
Okay. And there I try to predict the market value of players based on their age, position, how many goals they scored, and so on, and their current club. Of course, the model was a whole disaster. But I mean, what can you expect from like 8 weeks? But the good thing is, I did the project from front to end, so I basically knew how to get data, how to clean it, how to throw a model on it and get a result. I mean, this is the essence I got from the bootcamp, that I know the whole process. And I mean, if you get better with experience, and I would do so many things different than I did like 2.5 years ago. I mean, this is also a pretty nice thing to see, to notice your progress when you look back at your first project and you you close your eyes and say, "Whoa, what an idiot you were!" But now you know better, and this shows your progress. This is always nice to come back to your old pet project.
Out of curiosity, what was your approach back then? Did you go the route of being overkill and making things way more complicated than they were? Or did you go the route of things where you made a lot of assumptions and the tools that you used were too simple?
Neither one of those, because I made some pretty basic mistakes, like some principles you should always follow. Like I cleaned the data wrong. I did, if we dive into nerd topics now, I did the train test split way too late, and so information spilled over into the training data set. And some pretty basic things I wouldn't do today, but this shows that you can get good results if you focus on the basics.
That's how you learn. Yeah, 100%. And did the bootcamp help you land your current job, or was that just kind of up to you?
I would say so. As I mentioned before, the bootcamp is only the starting point. You cannot expect to make a bootcamp and then say, "Well, I'm fit for a junior position." I mean, this is only the beginning, and then you have to build up on this pretty, I would say, not very solid foundation you have. So you have to continue to make this foundation solid so that you can get into the job. So what I did, I ended my bootcamp directly in the upcoming COVID pandemic situation. So the job market was pretty much empty. No one was hiring. So I said, well, yeah, I mean, this is a bit frustrating, but I can use the time to really take like half a year to learn everything I wanted to learn, which I wouldn't have the time for if I'd started directly from the bootcamp. So I learned for like half a year, and then the situation kind of went back to semi-normal, I would say. And then people were already hiring. And then I don't know how you call it in English. If there's no job posting, but I applied anyway. So in Germany, we call it like application from self-initiative. Is this something that exists in the English language? I don't know. So I basically sent my application to my current employer, and I knew that they were working in the media industry with focus on newspapers. So I thought to myself, what could be interesting for them? And then I looked for a newspaper data set on Kaggle, found one, and then I applied the basic knowledge I had at this time, but they pretty much have liked it because, I showed interest in their problems, in their business model, and that's what kind of impressed them. They didn't have a position for me. I had the luck that I talked to two departments in parallel, and then and both didn't really know where to put me. And then I said, hey, why don't we make some kind of trainee job? I don't have the experience, but I have the enthusiasm and creativity, and you know that I can do it, but I still need to learn. So let's make a trainee out of it. I work part-time for the department A and part-time for department B, and they pretty much liked this approach, and that's how I got my job out of nothing. It wasn't planned, but with this double approach, I bargained myself into this trainee position. So yeah.
That's amazing. I've never heard that before. You should create an online course for how to do that.
Yeah, I would say there's also a pretty decent amount of luck needed for that. But I mean, this is for every entry job. Once you're in, then you're settled, and then you get experience. And I mean, we all know this. I don't have a job, but I need experience. And in order to become a job, I need experience. Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that you've essentially kind of removed that question off the table for them by just taking on a data set and a project that is related to their industry. Did you have other companies in your sight that you were going to try and do the same thing with? Did you do it with them, or did you get lucky with the first shot?
And I mean, it wouldn't be feasible to apply to every position with a mini project. Otherwise, I would get out one application a week. I was in other rounds, but they rejected me, and this was a round where I got to the second round, and then I thought maybe I can enhance my chances of getting hired. But yeah, I mean, if you have like a dream employer or an industry where you really, really like to work, so say if we would say I want to work in the football industry, then I could do a mini project around football and then apply to several football related companies. I mean, this is something you could do. I could also have taken my project and applied to 10 other media companies. Why not? I mean, this is all has the same problem. So if you have a dream industry, a dream employer, then maybe do something for them. You could kind of practice your interviewing with some companies where you would apply but don't really want to work for, and then work your way upwards to your possible employers where you really want to work.
So from there, you got your first job. You got your first job in data science. How big is the team actually that you joined?
It depends because I was working in two departments. In one department, I was working in a big project with like 30 people, and in the other department where I did like day-to-day work, we are currently 8 people. But it's pretty diverse because the team is officially a data engineering and analytics team. So I'm kind of a bit exotic with my data science background. To be honest, we have the same phenomenon like in the whole data industry that I was hired as a data scientist, but most of my time I do data engineering tasks. And this is not only, I wouldn't call it a problem because I also learn pretty much everything from this. job, but this is a phenomenon in the whole data industry that people get hired as a data scientist, but do a lot of data engineering tasks, because not every company has the funds to actually have a dedicated data science team, a dedicated data engineering team. So when I when I finished my bootcamp, I thought, yeah, I go into a company and I build sophisticated models every day and I do nothing else. And this is kind of an illusion which was shattered, I would say, in my first 3 months. Yeah, I was a bit frustrated because I imagined that I would work on models all the time. If I look back at it, it was the best that could happen to me, because data engineering, basic fundamental knowledge is so great for every data profession, whether you're working in analytics, in science, and so on. It's pretty good for everyone, I would reckon. And I changed my perception what data science is in my current role, because when I started, I thought, yeah, a data scientist is someone who builds models, who does predictions all the time. I changed it to that I solve kind of problems or business questions with the help of data from front to end. As a data scientist, I need to kind of transform the problem into a technical data solution from front to end. This involves data engineering, analytics, and of course, machine learning, such as models. And for me, machine learning was a major element in all of this, but now I see it as kind of a puzzle piece in all of this. So machine learning models can be a way to enrich your data, to give you additional information, to automate a decision, but this is not what brings the value. The value is the whole pipeline, the whole data product, the whole data project, however you call it. And I don't get my value as a data scientist from building sophisticated models. I feel myself valued in the company when someone says, well, you solved the problem. And I don't need machine learning for it. I mean, I can write some code where there's a rule: if value is over X, then do this. If value is under X, then do this. But this pretty much solves problems for people. And this is, in my opinion, the essence of data science. I think data science is often advertised as you build models, you train neural networks, you basically invent the wheel. And if you come into the company, you say, wow, people are, I wouldn't say people are in the Stone Age, but I would say there's a lot of work still to do on the basic foundation side in data infrastructure. And so many people have so many basic problems you can solve pretty fast with basic solutions. And this is what brings the value, not training a super sophisticated machine learning model. This can be the solution sometimes, but in my experience, most often a simple solution brings the value.
That's very well put. I think you put it very well. The reality is that a lot of the business data science just delivers value through solving business problems. A lot of the business problem can be solved by very simple data solutions. I guess the main challenge comes from what you describe is translating that business problem into a data problem, and then you can come up with a solution. And then yes, some of the problems you will need to go deeper into your machine learning bag to be able to actually solve the problem. But realistically, you can probably get a pretty good solution with a lot of simple models, if you need models at all in some cases.
This was a major learning for me, that you have to talk to so many people for long times to actually get to the root of the problem. This is what I would say great data scientist differs from just normal good data scientists, because this like you mentioned, this translation part is actually the hard part. Not coding everything up. This is the fun part. The hard part is talking to the people, understanding their problems, understanding their language. I mean, if you talk to someone from logistics, marketing, web analytics, everyone has their I would say department jargon, their own vocabulary you have to understand. when I came out of bootcamp, I thought, wow, I can basically work in every department, no problem. Data is data. This is actually not the case. Data is not data. Every department has their own unique problems with the data, and expect to talk a lot and to get to the root of the problem. Coding is not the problem, actually. I spend 5% of my day on coding because this is fun, and I'm pretty fast with it because it is so fun. And the hard part is talking to people and understanding what they want to say and what they need. I mean, in so many projects, I delivered a solution which they actually didn't need at all because I over-engineered it. I solved a different problem for them. Yeah, this is the main challenge, and this is, I think, the first thing everyone learns when they get their first data job, irrelevant of it if it's engineering, analytics, science. I think it's everywhere the same.
Yeah, I can imagine some people probably go through the first project, they build this very complex thing for them, they deliver it, and people that are outside of the data area probably just don't understand, and they don't share the excitement about the new toy that they've just built.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember what was the project that you worked on where you felt like, okay, that's it, like I get it, I think I'm a data scientist now, or whatever you kind of envision data scientists to be?
As I mentioned, I was working in a whole project and in another department. When I worked in this whole project with 30 people, this really made me understand what it's all about. We built a huge pipeline in the Google Cloud where we enriched our news which are coming in. And there were so many aspects about it. Maybe we extracted locations from the news. And there were so many people involved in just a basic product. And this really changed my perception on the whole thing. I didn't code up an algorithm. We used a pretty basic machine learning library for that. What my task was to get the data all together. I almost felt like a software engineer because I needed to put together different microservices so that the whole pipeline would work in the end. And the most difficult part was to get the results back out onto users who could work with it. And I think we developed for like a year, and then only then we had the chance to get our first result out to an actual user and see how they would work with it. I mean, in theory, every project sounds really fine, but then I think the moment of truth is when it gets out to a user who's non-technical, who needs to actually use what you produced in your basement for like the last year. And this also where I learned that you need to be pretty agile in these data projects, because you need to get out results fast so that someone can say, you're running the total wrong direction, please adjust this. This is very, very important. And that is my major learning, because there I understood the whole pipeline is our product we get out, not this little puzzle piece of machine learning model we use. This only enriches our data. The whole value comes from the whole thing. And yeah, this pretty much opened my eyes. What my profession is, actually.
That's really interesting. And I think it relates a lot with entrepreneurship and just building a startup company. You don't want to build something in a basement for a year and then wait to hear feedback that actually no one's using it. And similarly, like you ask questions, you try to speak to potential users or customers to understand what do they actually need, and you need to drill down into the assumptions that they make that they probably are not even aware of when they say stuff, so that you can actually understand what you need to build. So I think it's quite interesting the way you describe it. Switching gears a little bit, you've started recently building up your personal brand. You mentioned that you're passionate about sharing your love of data science in the field with other people. And you've done some really interesting stuff. That's how we found you. You're posting on LinkedIn regularly, and you share projects, you share tips. So that's amazing. First of all, do you remember your first post?
If we neglect like 3 or 4 posts I made in 2020 or so. Yeah, I remember my first post. I wrote my first influencer post or creator post pretty intentionally, because I think everyone knows Justin Welch from LinkedIn, the LinkedIn God's guru.
I know him, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I stumbled upon his content, and then you get sucked into his world. And then my need to also post grew with every post I read from him. And then I said, yeah, why not do it? And then I closed my first post, I still remember, with the words, maybe this is something I will print in the foreword of my first book. But this is something for the future, what I planned already ahead. Yeah, I remember my first post. I was super anxious and I wrote way too much. But yeah, and now since I really progressed and evolved in my ways to write and how to create my content, yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate. Sometimes you spend like hours thinking about the perfect post, and you polish it, and you end up writing a lot more than you should. You're way too descriptive. And then you finally muster up the courage to publish, and you publish, and then nothing happens.
Like 3 likes.
Oh, no. I'm a failure.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
3 likes, 2 of them are your friends.
Yeah, your grandma, your aunt.
Your mom just made a LinkedIn account so that she can like your post.
Yeah, but everyone has to start somewhere, right? And if I look at my journey, I would call it, you start with nothing and then you work your way up. I mean, it's all about consistency. You have to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important part. And with every new follower and every new engagement, you will grow. And some days you will hit some kind of invisible barrier where your growth gets kind of exponential, because so many people like your content and then regularly engage with it. And yeah, and my biggest tip, if you want to be successful, find others who also post regularly and connect with them, because you engage with each other's content, you get tips from them. It's pretty impressive. I mean, this whole LinkedIn creator data community is great. There's so much free value out there. I learned so much from LinkedIn, and yeah.
That's very true. Yeah. And also, one thing that's interesting about kind of the creator economy is that it's not really a zero-sum game. So if we are both creators, we're not really incentivized to kind of not interact or compete against each other. Same with podcasters. Like it makes sense to invite people that have a podcast onto a podcast, because you end up kind of sharing audiences and growing together. So I think that's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, totally agree. Because I mean, basically everyone is creating the same product, but for every host, every content creator, there's this personal note you can simply not copy. Because when I go to your podcast, I go to your podcast because I like you guys, and I would go to another podcast or don't go to another podcast because I don't like the host. So yeah, can pretty much agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. There's nuances to how different people perceive things and write about things, and then there's also the aspect of like, do you like that person? Is that person a bit of a dick? Or so how do you think about, what's the vision for you for being a creator? Is it planned? Is it intentional? Or are you just trying to share stuff and thinking about, okay, maybe serendipitously I'm gonna connect with people and who knows what's gonna happen? Or do you have like a bit more of a, okay, I have some milestones, I have some goals I want to achieve? How do you think about it?
As of now, I would say I pretty much go with the flow. I noticed my passion for, I would call it some kind of teaching or telling people about my passion for data scientists. I noticed because I did a voluntary project at Tech Labs. It's a platform. I think they are pretty much everywhere in Europe, I think I started in Hamburg, and there I teach voluntarily 5 people a small data science project, so just pro bono. And
Nice.
there I noticed that I pretty much like this teaching part, and that I like to, I don't know, throw it out into the world. And that's how I started LinkedIn, because it kind of makes fun. It's fun for me. So I like to do it regularly. Sometimes it's work, because there's also hours of my life involved, which I need to put in. But I like it. As of now, I don't have future plans, I would say. Maybe in, I don't know, in the distant future, I could imagine that I get such a follower count that I could make a side business out of it, where I teach people what I now do for free in like cohort courses or in one-on-one coachings. But there's nothing solid about it. Right now, I pretty much enjoy it. I learn a lot from all the other creators, and I, to be honest, I do it for myself, because when I have to research topics I present, I learn them a second time and learn them a lot more solid than I did in the first place. And this makes me better. I noticed that I'm much more self-confident in my job after I did this. And people perceive me as an expert, which is also nice. Not
Helps,
yeah. This is an undervalued factor, I would say, in a data project. If people think you can do the job, then they trust you. You get things more easily done. And if they don't think that you could do the project, then you have a hard time. So this is pretty much eases also my job. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's very useful to build a reputation. And I think, yeah, you're right in terms of the confidence is at the end of the day, to publish something, you need to make sure you understand it to some extent. Like you're not going to be the top researcher, like you're not going to compare yourself to like the top researcher in the field, but you at least have a good way of routinely just stay up to date and revisiting topics and understanding them with like enough depth that you can talk about them and share them with others. How do you find? Sorry, go on.
It definitely decreased my fear of making mistakes. I would call myself a perfectionist with all the ups and downs, and that's why I'm pretty eager to not make mistakes or to deliver a perfect result. And daily posting made me a bit more relaxed about it. When I now notice a mistake, I say, "Yeah, come on, people don't. No one cares. No one cares." So if there's a typo, no one really cares. No one ever said, "Wow, you missed you did a typo in line 3." So no one really cares, and this made me a lot more relaxed, because I put myself out there, and this gives me a feeling of the world isn't that unfair to you. So.
Yeah. How easy do you find the process of writing in general, writing a post or maybe a series of posts?
I had to learn it because I pretty much wrote blogs or walls of text when I started. And now I learned how to write on a social media platform. This is something different from writing a book or writing in your journal. I don't know. You have to make it bite-sized. You have to be a bit clickbaity, I would say, so that people actually look at your post. I mean, I don't promise false things there, but you have to make the rather technical data topic a bit more dramatically, a bit more emotional. So yeah, this is something I learned from Justin World, from other creators. So this, you have to make it visually appealing. This is different than writing a blog post, a book. Yeah, especially when it comes to data topics.
Yeah, you need to give people a reason to stop scrolling for a second.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the average attention span for a post is like 3 seconds. So if it doesn't get you, then you're out. And then you spend like 2 hours for your post and no one reads it. Yeah.
I see that quite a lot. A lot of people put a lot of effort into posts, but they don't think about just that first sentence. And especially on LinkedIn, you just see the first sentence, and then that determines whether or not you click see more and you see the rest of it. So the goal of the first sentence is just to get someone to read the second.
Yeah.
I think Justin Wolf says that, or
that's
a few other people say
the
that.
first thing I learned from him. Get people to click on the see more prompt. Yeah. That's major. Yeah.
Have you played around with ChatGPT or any of the large language model to write a bit of content?
Of course. When the Plus subscription came out, I immediately signed up. Yeah. I mean, I use it for content ideation, of course, because it pretty much subsidized my Google searches. Because in the past, I went to Google when I had questions. Hey, give me topic ideas for, I don't know, topic A, and now I write everything into ChatGPT and get my inspiration from there. This is where I use it in my private life. So of course I don't use it to write actual posts, because you immediately notice that they are written by an AI, because it sounds really weird sometimes. So I use it for ideation, to get ideas, because it's pretty much great for it. That's why I use it for, and I use it on my job to replace all the tedious tasks when coding. For example, sometimes I throw some code snippets into it. I wouldn't throw sensitive code or anything like that into ChatGPT, because I don't know where it lands finally. But some code snippets I throw into it, and say, find the bug, write some comments into the code, write me a doc string for a function, write me what do I use it for? Yeah, rewrite the function in the style as such, or write me what my biggest use case currently is. I don't know if you're familiar with it or anyone who's listening, but you can, if you write software code, you can write unit tests which test your code. And this was pretty a hard to comprehend topic for me, and also a very tedious task. And now I just say, here ChatGPT, here's the function, please write some unit tests. And this works super, super well. And this saves me a lot of time in my professional life. Really, really great for that, yeah.
Yeah, the unit test use case is the one that works. I think early on, before even the model was GPT 3.5 or GPT 4, it worked really, really well with unit test.
That's interesting. I suppose in line with that, what excites you about your field for the future? And by future, I have no idea what I'm even asking. Like, I would say 5 years, but in 5 years, who knows? What's like? Let's just say 1 year.
I mean, yeah, of course. At this point, I would have mentioned ChatGPT and all the other AI tools which automate workflows. I think this enhances and changes the way all data professions will work in the future. I mean, we also have seen, I think in the last 2 years, there were a lot of solutions for low code and no code solutions. Especially if you go to the bigger cloud providers like Google Cloud Platform, AWS, Azure, they all provide no code solutions where you don't actually have to code something up. You could just dump your data into it and say, please throw Model X on it. When 2 years ago, I feel threatened by it. Right now, I see it as a huge time saver for me, because this enables widespread availability of such methods. Not only right now, I think it's only somewhat bigger companies can actually have this data infrastructure. I think with low code and no code tools, this will make it available for a lot more smaller companies, a lot of other companies, because I mean, like I mentioned before, this basic data science, basic data management, or basic machine learning, things, they are not that complex and not that hard to implement. And I think with these low and no code solutions, a lot more companies and even small companies will be able to use these, because I think this enables to uncover this hidden data treasure everyone has in their company, but can't really use because they don't have the knowledge, the tools. And if a lot more tedious tasks get replaced by AI, this enables a lot more for small companies to really use data science techniques and methods. And I think this will be the future, that we are going away from this technical data science coding way more into problem understanding and business problem solving, which is a good development in my opinion, because this is like I mentioned before, this is the essence of this profession. And I wouldn't think that if it's no code tools or AI tools, they won't replace people, they only change the way we work. And I mean, some tedious tasks will be replaced, but I personally, I wouldn't fear an AI tool to replace me. This is, I mean, let's talk in 1 year. I would say currently it cannot replace me because it's limited. It cannot understand a business problem the way I do. It cannot understand data the way I do.
Yeah, 100%.
And I mean, it can propose some kind of code, but often enough, it solves the problem to like 90%. And the last 10%, I'm needed for that. So yeah, I wouldn't think that you could fill up your department with only ChatGPT.
There's a meme going around with like your startup pitch deck, and it's like, who's the team? It's you, and then GPT. No, I think
maybe some of us will become some kind of prompt engineers in the future. I don't know. It's also a kind of art to perfectly describe the output you want to have from the model. So
yeah, it is. But if you can go back and forth and iterate on what's being produced, I think that's exciting. And if the programming language of the future is natural language, then it opens it up for a lot more people. And so then the role of humans is to think, because then the doing is going to be done mostly by whatever software, language models, etc.
That's a good quote.
I think that's interesting.
This could be the headline of a Forbes article. Natural language is the new coding language in the future.
I'm pretty sure I heard it from somewhere. But...
it was in your training data set.
Doom scrolling. Okay. So, any advice, I suppose, for younger people that are just about to kind of transition into the world of work? Things are moving very quickly. How would you think about it? Because you had a very interesting approach to finding your job. What would you recommend to other people? To follow you on LinkedIn, of course. But then
I have maybe 2 recommendations. The first one is pretty straightforward. If you want to work in data, then you have to put in the effort. And that means you can't simply do like 2 or 3 courses and then expect to know it. You have to approach this like a lifelong learning thing. You have to keep going. Like I mentioned with my LinkedIn activity, the key is consistency. If you want to work in this profession, you have to consistently learn and do projects or such. And the tough recommendation is you need to figure out what you want. But I'm not exactly a good example because I didn't pretty much knew what I wanted right after high school or when I finished my degree. But it helps to know if A, data is for you, and B, which data profession path is your cup of tea. Because I learned that somehow it is a mix of everything, but you should focus on, I would call it engineering or analytics or science, because in every profession path you can dive so deep into one topic. And yeah, so easy recommendation: do projects or learn consistently. Tough recommendation B is to figure out what you want to do in the future, what you want to follow.
That's true. Figuring out what you want to do is definitely the
But
tough
this
part.
is rather philosophical thing. I think no one really figures this out in their lifetime.
And in any case, just if you can't find anything, just create your own job like you do.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the way to do it. I think that's a lot of people don't realize that that's an option. Just reaching out to someone and being like, hey, are you hiring? Even if you're not, here's what I can bring to the table. I've looked at what you do. I think I can help. It's a much more effective way than just sending out a million
What you
applications.
could do is go onto LinkedIn, find your employers you want to apply to, and then look for people working in HR. And maybe you can, or even better, if you want to work in the data profession, look for the head of data, write them a message.
Look for the hiring manager.
Yeah. Maybe this will work.
Exactly. Or the CEO.
It depends on company size. Maybe in your case, this would work. Maybe other company sizes wouldn't work that well.
Okay, well, I think we've reached the end. Any closing thoughts from you? Anything you'd like to share that's happening in your world that's exciting?
Pretty much unprepared for this kind of question. Yeah, if you want to progress your data career or learn how to do a data project, if you want to learn how data science really works, besides all the advertising and all the courses you find on the internet, then of course you should follow me on LinkedIn, because I share my experiences from my job every day, and I share data projects every Friday. You can do. That's how Alex and Sofian we met, and there you can also find a free data notion space. You can find a project template. You will find resources for every data science topic you can imagine. So feel free to check that out. You can duplicate it for yourself, and it's all yours.
That's awesome. Yeah, we can vouch. Fabian, thank you so much for your time. This was a very interesting conversation, and I'm sure we're going to have you back at some point.
Sounds great.
Great job.